All right, everyone, we are going into Chapter 8, Respect Through Communication, the patient story. So our objectives today are understanding the various voices in a patient's story, literary forms used in healthcare communications. This chapter isn't as long as some of the other chapters, so this should go fairly quickly, although I do like to talk about this chapter because it is important that we understand really where our patients are coming from. So ultimately, any patient in the healthcare system is going to tell their story through the chart itself. And we are actually, as the healthcare provider, telling the story for the patient. And that's all mostly through subjective, but it's also through objective. We're telling the story of how their range of motion is, how their manual muscle testing is. The patient gives us the subjective information. We're taking that information and we're putting it in the chart. And in this, the physical therapist will give their account of what's wrong with the patient and their symptoms. The doctor interprets it, makes a diagnosis, and sometimes the patient doesn't always give us the full story, or even for the truth for that matter. Or sometimes they're not really sure what the truth is. They don't know how they got hurt. This happens all the time. Constantly, either about how they got hurt or how things they did this week. I have a lot of patients who I don't know why my shoulder hurts. I don't know why my pain's increased. I haven't done anything different. You go, okay, did you do your home exercise programs? And you sort of dig and you look and you ask questions. And then halfway through the treatment, they're like, well, I did go bowling over the weekend, and maybe that could be it. Sometimes I don't think they really want to tell us the full story because they don't want to be in trouble. But it's important for us to really kind of guide them into the truth. They will tell their story in the layman's terms. We have to interpret that and put it in medical terms. A lot of people have difficulty telling what they feel or how things are experiencing it. I know I had trouble when I had my C-section kind of describing the pain, and I'm a therapist. I should know this should be easy. I should know how it is. But it's challenging for some patients to be able to kind of really say what their symptoms are or what that feeling is that they're having in their shoulder or in the back. Make sure that you're not filling in their blanks and creating the story for them. That's something that's important because if you're telling the story, then you're not actually getting the story from the patient, you're getting it from you. Try to guide them, but don't give them what they want. So don't go up to them and say, okay, so is your pain a 5 out of 10? They're going to go, oh, well, yeah, I guess so. Ask them what their pain level is. 0 to 10. 0 is no pain. 10 is I have to take you to the hospital. 5 is like halfway. Guide them into what they're trying to say. Don't actually give them the number because then they're going to say that number, and that's actually filling in the blanks. For kids, it can be tough. Usually drawing or role-playing might help. Again, trying not to fill in your patient's blanks for them. They don't always understand. I know when Reed was in the hospital, the doctor was like, did your head hurt? Yeah. Does your belly hurt? Yes. Does your hair hurt? Yes. Like he didn't really understand what he was trying to say. He just knew something was hurting or uncomfortable. So kind of drawing pictures will help you not fill in those blanks. So awareness of literary form in your communication. Pay attention to different aspects of the various types of writing you encounter. Each clinic, when you write, there is a way that people write. And it kind of, they say in the book that it kind of comes off as poetry because everyone sort of has a way of communicating in its own form, in its own structure. And medically, we do have a way of kind of communicating that over. Every clinician is different, so just make sure that you're following what that clinic likes to do. They also have their own medical abbreviations. I know we've talked about abbreviations in fundamentals. They may or may not use those. They might have different ones they use. So just make sure that wherever you end up being, that you're using the correct abbreviations that that clinic likes. Narrative language is not transparent. There are no similes, there's no metaphors or figure of speeches used. Not every clinic, again, uses the abbreviations. Just write the facts or observations of what you saw. Again, and this goes back to just what we talked about in fundamentals. You need to write what you've talked about and don't go into anything else. Don't expand too far into something if it's not true. So the medical record we want to state the case as what the case is. Say what the patient is trying to tell you without going into your own assumptions of what's happening. You must decide what's actually important to go into the SOAP note and what documentation is going to create their story for them. So we use the SOAP notes: subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. Subjective is what the patient's telling you. Objective is anything measurable. Assessment is an assessment on how they're progressing or how they're doing, either in that daily note or in the treatment plan that they've had. And a plan is what you want to do next. Any goals, those kind of things. But again, writing exactly what is meant to be in the note is important. If you can't really figure out medically how to write it in medical terms, you can quote some things. So I've used the term wonky. Patient describes pain as, quote, wonky. That would be something that I could quote. Depending on who's saying it, make sure that you're writing down whether it was the patient or the family and record that appropriate information in the chart. Education is also very important, not only on educating about the discharge plan and how the patient is meeting it, but how you educated your patient into doing that. Did they understand the education that you gave them? That's all important to be communicated through the documentation. And all of this adds to their story and helps it tell to the other parties and other team members that you're working with, so that everyone is in full understanding with what you're communicating to the patient and what you are looking to do with the patient. So this sort of talks about in the book different forms, like different tools that can be used to offer. It talks about point of view, characterization, what is a true story, making sure some of the literary tools that we're looking at are like the point of view, characterization, plot, motivation. Those are all things that are tools that you can use in your encounter between you and your patient. Writing down only what's true in your chart. Try not to put in things that may not be necessary, and try to not leave things out that are. When you're talking in your story or reading a story, a person can always tell who's speaking. In a medical chart, we're referring to the person as a third person. Patient reports pain, not his pain is. Oh, I know that we've addressed this in fundamentals already. Never write I. Therapist saw, or PT assisted by therapist to the bed. Those kind of things is how we write it. When you're talking about transfers, patient transferred independently from supine to sitting with min assist. Not that I assisted patient with transfer. That's not how it's written. We write things differently sort of in the note. You're going to find that patients tell their stories to you, and these stories will sort of unfold in front of you. And you might even find that you are sort of part of that story because you are now a part of their lives. So making sure that you are documenting, again, everything that is true. One thing that I wanted to mention, I forgot to say when it's true to the story, is don't document information that you aren't sure of. So if you say patient was able to lift purse that's 15 pounds, make sure that purse is 15 pounds. I have many times weighed a purse or book bag or something like that just to see, so I could document it correctly and really sort of get a idea of how they were doing it. So that is really it for this chapter. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in chapter 9. Thanks. Bye, guys.